Hey folks, Pat here from DNS. This Madison area fishing report is current as of October 6th. Got a lot of stuff to talk about, but just a couple quick plugs. Y'all know I'm a big trout guy, big supporter of Trout Unlimited, Southern Wisconsin Trout Unlimited. I sat on their board for many years. Um, Always will plug them, but I wanted to plug that they do work days around the area, keeping trout streams fishable and clean. And so they have one coming up tomorrow, actually, from 9 to noon out at Big Spring Creek. So that's way west of Madison. It's usually they work in their territory close to Madison here, but they're out there doing a joint work day with the NOR chapter, and they're going to be working on Big Spring Creek. It's a beautiful little creek. Going to be clearing some willows out of there. So if you got the energy and the time, head out there. A bunch of great folks you can meet. I know that's what really got me into being involved with Trout Unlimited, was seeing the impressive work they do on work days, and you get to meet a lot of cool people, or might be trout nerds like yourself. But anyway, yeah, get out there and check it out. The good news is, once you drive all the way out there and do some good work in the morning, you're rewarded by being in a fantastic area for trout fishing. There's trout streams all over out there. It's really a great area to fish and explore. So anyway, Southern Wisconsin Trout Unlimited, great group of folks. Go support them if you can. Doug Carker hit me up on Facebook and asked me to promote the UW-Platteville Open Bass Fishing Tournament, which is Saturday, October 21st on the Madison Chain of Lakes. It's a fundraiser for this group, so they're going to be they need help with paying for travel and stuff through the spring when they're out fishing tournaments and stuff. So anyway, $100 per boat. Looks like some decent payouts there. And yeah, support a good cause. I bet if you just look up on Facebook UW-Platteville Bass Fishing Team, you'll find them just fine. I guess we can dig into the report. I don't know why my screen's going to do this, but you don't need to look at my face here. So we'll just switch this back to the avatar. Anyway, yeah. So generally around the chain, well, actually the weather, sorry, had a bit of a heat wave come through the first part of this week, but things really cooled down overnight, and it looks like highs in the mid-50s for the weekend and most of next week. So while the shorts and tank top weather may be behind us, this cool weather will get the fish snapping here. Mendota buoy is still down, but another resource that reads surface temperature said Mendota was at 67 degrees this morning, so a little bit down from last week. The bigger news is that this buoy down here on Brittingham Park, not buoy, but USGS station down here in Brittingham Bay, was reading 66 degrees yesterday, is now reading 60 degrees. So that cold and wind that moved in last night really cools down the water pretty fast, especially in shallow water. So, and the rest of the temps in the chain should come down pretty quickly too. Generally around the chain, it sounds like floating weeds and really weeds in general are becoming less of a problem as they continue to die back. Visibility can vary greatly depending on where you're at, but I'd say overall water clarity is decent. For the most part, these cooler temps have fish moving into their fall patterns around the chain. Nice gills are still being found on weed lines and mid-lake humps on Mendota, but the suspended gills we saw all summer on the rest of the chain have, for the most part, moved into shallow areas. Redworms and spikes continue to work well for the gills. Outside of tiny fish, perch action remains basically non-existent on Mendota and elsewhere. Largemouth bass are still shallow around the chain, and smallmouth bass and walleye are being picked up on shoreline breaks and mid-lake humps. However, local guide extraordinaire Noah Humfeld was in yesterday, and he said he's starting to find good numbers of walleye showing up on weed edges near shoreline and right in the weeds all around the chain. He says jerkbaits and a jig and a minnow have been working well, especially after dark. Pike are plentiful and are starting to bulk up for winter. And Noah's been putting clients on some great muskie action, running shallow, or topwater lures over the tops of weeds. But he's super excited that these cooler temps will get the muskies chewing pretty well in the future here. Area streams and rivers are up a bit from where they were last month, but still running real low and clear even for this time of year. Let's see up here to Cherokee. Still a weedy mess up there, but the weeds are starting to die back a bit, opening up some pockets. So if you got a topwater frog, you got a pretty good chance at a bass or a pike up there. Speaking of frogs, that bite's going to start to taper off here with this colder weather. Those frogs will go and hibernate and be away for the winter. But so get while the getting's good, I guess. If you got a small boat, canoe, or kayak, you can launch here at the Cherokee Park launch off School Road. Get out in the channel and up and down the river here. Find some good action for bass and pike. Down here to the 113 bridge, they're still getting some catfish down there, some dandies for sure. Crawlers and stinkbait are working well, but it seems like cut bait's becoming more and more popular as things cool down. And of course, there's a nice mixed bag of fish down there too. Over on Mendota, we've got, like I mentioned, the perch bite is just not great. I don't even hear about people chasing them anymore lately, really. The good news is the gills are still keeping folks busy on weed lines and on mid-lake humps. I hear about the occasional crappie here and there, but those fish are scattered at best. A small jig tipped with a spike or red worm has been most effective for all the panfish, and the occasional walleye or smallmouth bass will grab those baits as well. Largemouth bass action remains good up shallow. Smallmouth bass and walleye action has been great outside the weed edges, near shoreline breaks and mid-lake humps. But like Noah said, a lot of the weeds are starting to push, or a lot of the walleye are starting to push into the shallower weed lines and right in the weeds. Extra large fatheads and black-tailed chubs have been working well, but folks trolling crawlers and crankbaits out a little deeper are still getting fish. I also hear regularly about some big catfish mixing things up for folks, both from shore and out to 20 feet of water or so. The Tenney Park area has been picking up. The walleye action is only going to get better down here as things cool down from the break wall, especially at night. It's a very popular spot down there. The Tenney Park Lock and Dam below there has been kind of slow from what I hear from the guys down there, but um, some decent bluegills here and there, or a random walleye will be picked up, and some decent bass in the river, heading towards Lake Monona. Speaking of bass, the nice largemouth remain in the Tenney Park Lagoon, and of course a bunch of tiny bluegills in there as well. Down on Monona, um, the gills that have been suspended out over the deep water are generally, for the most part, moving into shallower water. Many of those gills have moved into Monona Bay over here, so the triangles and Brittingham Park area has been good, and folks in boats are getting fish. They're staging in there, getting ready for winter, and I've heard about a few crappies being picked up in there too. Speaking of crappies and bluegills, the Monona Terrace Wall continues to have a good bite out there for bluegills during the day and crappies at dusk and into evening. That bite out there, that window for a bite can vary from anywhere from like an hour to a couple hours. So, but they're getting some nice fish out there. Over to Lake Wingra, the usual tiny panfish up here, some nice bass, and the occasional muskie coming out of there. But they are getting fish below the Wingra Dam over here, so it sounds like they've been getting some nice fish over there. And I know I mentioned that for the most part, bluegills have moved in shallow on Lake Monona. I am still hearing about folks getting some fish near the rock pile, and the hump out over here, but in a little bit deeper water, but still basically near weed lines and adjacent to shallower water. So, and it's just going to be a matter of time before those fish, for the most part, all move in shallow. And like I said, Noah's been putting some folks on some good muskies down here on Monona and Mendota. So, and that action's going to be picking up here soon. I'm getting a bunch of muskie suckers in today from my bait guy. So, stop on in if you're running suckers. We can get you all set up. Got a bunch of sucker rigs and everything to do all that fun stuff that fall brings. Down here on Upper Mud, got still a good topwater frog bite in Upper Mud. The weeds are starting to die back, but still very thick down there. Down on Wabisa, pretty much the same thing as Monona. Some muskies getting picked up in there. Gills that were suspended are starting to move in shallow for the most part. Bass are still, largemouth bass still up shallow. And I've heard about, it sounds like a little bit of walleye action starting to pick up between Bible Camp and Babcock Park Launch over here. So, some good action down there on Wabisa. The gills down there this year have been good size too, from what I hear. All summer, guys catching some nice gills. Also catching nice gills down on Kegonsa if you can find them. The bite down there, I don't get a ton of reports, and a lot of the guys that come in the shop that do fish down there haven't been fishing down there lately. But I imagine it's kind of the same deal as Wabisa. A lot of fish that were out suspended are going to be moving into weed lines. Along the state park over here is a pretty good bet to look for some walleyes. But other than that, I haven't really heard much out of Kegonsa. Down to the Rock River, also been a little quiet as far as reports I hear in the shop. They are getting some fish at the Indian Ford Dam, some flatheads down there, and a mixed bag of fish, white bass and that. Should be hanging out there in better numbers pretty soon. Up on Lake Kashkong, it sounds like they're getting some white bass, and the walleye sound like they're running a little bit on the smaller side. Also getting walleyes in the river here up from the lake, so up to Fort Atkinson, and I guess I imagine all the way up to the Jefferson Dam. Although up to the Jefferson Dam, a nice mixed bag, some white bass, stuff in there, catfish and flathead catfish too this time of year. That bite's been pretty decent from what I hear. What else we got? Beaver Dam Lake, still hearing about a great catfish bite up there. Had some folks in the shop that were headed up that way, and they've been going up there every weekend and catching catfish. So good for them. I know the walleye anglers up there definitely appreciate that. What do we got? Crystal Lake over here, still a great yellow bass population in there. I hear yellow bass are great eating, so if you want to catch a mess of fish, there's no limit on them, and help maybe make some room for some of the more desired species, bluegills, crappies, bass, all the good stuff that Crystal Lake was known for many years. Anyway, Wisconsin River running super low. Good thing about the river right now is that you can find fish anywhere you find slightly deeper water. But also, if you're looking for deeper water or having a hard time finding it, backsides of sandbars, inside corners, stuff like that, should be good. Anywhere there's long bluffs and stuff like that can be good. But really, when I say deep water, it can mean 3 feet of water where everything else is a foot, because the water is very, very low right now. So be careful if you're running a boat out there. Otherwise, in a nice mixed bag at the Prairie Stack Dam. And I guess as far as smallmouth on the river go, topwater frogs near shore have been good, but they're really chasing the shad around right now. So if you can find smallmouth busting shad on the surface all up and down the river here, you just throw something that looks like a minnow into that mess, and you'll likely catch some fish. Yeah, we talked about the dam. Lake Wisconsin has been, sounds like things have been improving up there a little bit. It was great all summer, then slowed down. But it sounds like a lot of white bass, sheep's head that they're getting, but the walleye size sounds like it's getting a little bit better. Also hearing about some good panfish, a couple of reports down near Moon Valley, a couple of reports of bluegills and crappies near Wood, some good panfish action over near Harmony Grove. So, action's been picking up on the river, and nice little spot up there if you want to get out of town a little bit. Portage up to the Dells, haven't heard much. Guy came in the other day, caught a huge sturgeon yesterday or the day before up here at the Wisconsin Dells Dam. I drove through the Dells for a trade show the other day. There was a couple boats up there. I imagine they're getting white bass and some flathead catfish up there. The usual mixed bag you find at all the dams. Same thing at Castle Rock and Petenwell, mixed bag at the dams. Haven't heard much out of Castle Rock Lake itself, but the fish in Petenwell have been good. It sounds like a good walleye bite. Getting a lot of white bass, panfish up there too. Over to the Mississippi River, it sounds like the action over there just continues to improve. Really, perch on weed edges, crappies in deeper holes, gills pretty much everywhere else. Sounds like good walleye action on wing dams, along with a good smallmouth bite on wing dams as well. So get over to the river if you like taking a trip. I hear from quite a few guys that actually come through and pick up bait before they head over there. And the bite sounds like it's been awesome. Over to Milwaukee. Well, here we are. It's October, and the fish really aren't running up the rivers that much. I have heard about some fish. I've seen some online reports. The fish have definitely moved into the harbors, though. It sounds like folks are getting fish up and down the East Coast in the harbors from shore and in boats, of course. But what we need is a little bit of cooler weather, which we just got here overnight. So that should cool things down and start pushing some of those fish up the river. So, all the way from Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee, Port Washington, Sheboygan, Manitowoc, all the way up. It's going to be happening here in a week. It's a super exciting time. Get over there, whether it's fly rod, spinning rod, whatever you got. Get over there. It's a great time. Hook into some 20-pound plus king salmon that'll be running up there pretty much through the month of October here. As for trout around Madison, what do we got? A week and a day left here, so clock's ticking on trout season. Ends on the 15th. So get out there and enjoy it while you can. I've been out a couple times the last week. Hoppers have still been working super well for me. And we will. I guess I forgot about the fly of the week. I was going to do a fly called the October caddis. It's a giant caddis. They're red-ish looking. They pop off this time of year. I usually see them in September. I haven't seen any around in my travels recently, but they should be popping off, and they're I think they're the largest mayfly that hatches in the area. They're big and reddish, and if you see them and you see fish rising to them, just tie on. I sell them here at the shop. I don't have a picture, of course, but it's a great thing, and we'll do another fly next week. If fish aren't looking up, though, you got hoppers, or I'm sorry, if they are looking up, you got hoppers, crickets, beetles, ants are all on the trout's menu this time of year. Of course, woolly buggers and nymphs are effective if fish aren't looking up. And on the spinning gear side of things, panther martins, tube jigs, Rapalas are all fantastic this time of year or all year really. Live bait on the side of things, redworm under a bobber, still hard to beat no matter what time of year you're out there. I guess that pretty much does it for the report. Thanks for tuning in. Post your comments and catches below. Let us know how you're doing out there. If you want me to expand on anything, call the shop here at 241-4225, and we can maybe try to provide you with some more specific information. Otherwise, yeah, appreciate you tuning in. Wish you luck out there, and yeah, we'll talk to you next week. Take care.